Hello and welcome from London. How much can Israel continue to rely on America's blanket support for its actions, and could a shift in that relationship provide a window for sustainable peace in the region? US mediator George Mitchell shuttled between the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas last week as part of indirect talks with the parties, who refused to meet face to face. Despite his push for dialogue, the US President Barack Obama has come under strong criticism from some in the American Jewish community for failing to fully support Israel. Their concern stems from reported tensions between the US and Israeli leaders over settlement construction and America's efforts to promote nuclear security. Other analysts, however, suggest that any perceived change in America's policy towards Israel is more likely to be attributed to a change in public support for the traditional ally and concerns over US involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan. On today's show, we ask, has American public support for Israel changed, and what will that mean for Middle East peace? Be a part of the discussion with your questions and comments. Send an SMS or an email, and we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Joining me is former US Congressman and longtime Mayor of New York City, Ed Koch. When Mayor Koch took office in 1978, he inherited a city on the verge of bankruptcy and $1 billion in debt. By 1983, the city was running a large surplus, and Mayor Koch easily won re-election. A vocal supporter of Israel, Mayor Koch never shied away from mixing municipal politics with his personal support for Israel. Mayor Koch, a longtime Democrat, has been disappointed with the Obama administration's Middle East policies. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
If I could ask by asking you, you believe the administration has thrown Israel under a bus, as you put it, and turned Israel into a pariah state. Explain why you feel that's the case, sir.
No, what I said was that they're bent on throwing Israel under a bus, but they have changed their position. I believe that President Obama and his administration wanted to intimidate Israel so as to get concessions which Israel would not normally provide because it would affect its own security. And they pressured Israel, and I spoke out, a number of other people, both Jews and Christians spoke out, and the president has changed his position, and recently, as a result of a letter sent by something like 75 senators and 355 members of the House objecting to what the president had done, the president has changed his position, and I accept him at his word, and I believe that once again Israel and the United States are on the same track.
Now, of course, Mr. Mayor, some studies are showing that young Americans, including some young American Jews, of course, feel that there is a new direction that needs to be taken. They recognize the rights of Palestinians, something that's been a bit of a departure from the past. And it's possible the president and his administration's under pressure to recognize what might be a shift in American attitude towards Israel. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I believe the polls don't show what you have just said as it relates to overall support for the state of Israel. I think the last time I saw a poll, it was like 58% supporting Israel and 19%, something like that, supporting the Palestinian cause. But put that aside. What Jews in Israel and Jews in the United States and Christians as well want is a two-state solution which will allow both states, Jewish and Palestinian Muslim, to live side by side in peace. I believe that the Palestinians are making a great error in not wanting to have direct talks with the state of Israel. It's had them in the past, and I believe they were very close to a settlement. The last time I heard two prior prime ministers of Israel talk about this, both accepting as does the current prime minister, the two-state solution, they were willing to return something like 97% of the West Bank, keeping about 3% so they could accommodate the Jewish population on the West Bank and bring them into Israel, and give the Palestinian new state equal land in terms of amount and value. And I think they should have taken it, but they decided not to for whatever reason. I think what the Palestinians refuse to, just one more, refuse to accept is a Jewish state. You know, Jews live side by side in Israel. I think 18% of Israel's population is Muslim. But Jews can't live on the West Bank in Muslim-controlled areas. Isn't that nonsensical?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think, Mr. Mayor, that of course the view about Israel has changed among many Palestinians, and there seems to be a much more of a middle ground nowadays. One issue, though, is that the current Prime Minister in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is seen as someone who's very hardline and perhaps not willing to make some of the concessions needed. Of course, the announcement of settlements during Vice President Joe Biden's visit was an embarrassment. I want to put an email that we got, sir, that came in from our Facebook page to you from one of yours. Go ahead, sir. Well, let me get this to you, sir. Let me get this to you, and then you get. Sure, go ahead.
You know, before the negotiations took place, Bibi Netanyahu said, we will never stop allowing Jews to live in any part of Jerusalem. We will never stop that. We will stop for a 10-month period in order to accommodate negotiations, settlements on the West Bank. The Palestinians accepted that. The United States accepted that, and then through a blunder, because it was discourteous, but Netanyahu was unaware of it, the Israeli government announced that in the Jewish sector of East Jerusalem, where Jews have lived and are currently living, they were going to, within the next 3 years, add 1,500 apartments. That did not in any way change what Netanyahu had said from the beginning. But the president used that to orchestrate a campaign against Israel, which he has now withdrawn.
Well, of course, Mr. Mayor, there are two very opposing sides on this view, and I won't get into debate with you on that. But, sir, let me ask you about something that you have suggested, and that is a solution to Jerusalem, something actually that has been a very sticky subject. It sounds perhaps with your known support for Israel the way it is, it's quite something new for you to embrace, something a little different when it comes to Jerusalem. Explain what it is you propose, sir, as a solution.
Yes, okay. I believe in the two-state solution, and the Palestinians and the Jews in Israel believe that Jerusalem should be their capitals. I believe that can be accommodated. In the area of East Jerusalem that ultimately becomes a part of the Palestinian state, there should be the Palestinian capital. But the single most important thing for both Jews and Arabs, in my judgment, is to keep the city undivided so that the residents of Jerusalem vote for one mayor, for one city council, and for a new office of borough president so as to accommodate the Palestinians in their new capital area of East Jerusalem. I think if in New York City we have 5 boroughs, and I was able to live with the most irascible borough presidents imaginable, that the mayor of Jerusalem can live with both an Israeli and Palestinian borough president who might be critical of what they're doing, but nevertheless work together in a Jerusalem government.
A very quick thought, sir. Then, one of the things you suggest is that people in Jerusalem could choose which country to be allied to. For example, in theory, the Arab Palestinians could actually vote to become Israeli citizens, or at least pledge to become Israeli citizens. Would that be acceptable?
Absolutely. I believe that the residents of Jerusalem could make a choice between becoming part of the new Palestinian state, which you would expect them to do, or to remain with the state of Israel. There are now currently, I think, over 1 million Palestinians who are citizens of the state of Israel. And there could be Jews who want to live on the West Bank who could be there as permanent settlers and immigrants under Palestinian law, or if the Palestinians did what I think they should, allow them to become citizens of a new Palestinian state. ultimately, that whole area
Let me get an email to you,
of
sir.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get an email to you actually because this was interesting. It came from Zubair Gagasht, who wrote in to our show and put this for you, sir. It says, J Street is a sign that the climate in the American Jewish population is changing. AIPAC is old school. The younger generation is fed up and feels the current Israeli leadership is way too extreme. How would you respond to that,
Well,
sir?
that's not what the polls show in terms of either support by the population of the United States, Christian and Jew, nor does it reflect the support that Israel still receives from the Congress. I told you 355 members of Congress and 75 senators out of the total of 100 senators wrote to the Secretary of State denouncing, in effect, but in nice language, the president's efforts to change the policy of the United States. And he now has met with a number of congressmen and said he stepped on a landmine, apologized, and makes it clear that he's not going to seek to impose a solution on the parties. They have to come to a negotiated solution by themselves, assisted by a mediator, not an arbitrator.
Okay. Well, Mayor Ed Koch, I thank you very much for joining us, sir. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
We have to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll get another perspective on the US-Israeli relationship. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're looking at a perceived shift in US-Israel relations and whether or not it has been driven by a change in how the American public views Israel. With me now on the show is Philip Weiss, an investigative journalist who's written for the New York Observer and The Nation and the American Conservative. He's a founder of Mondo Weiss, a news website devoted to covering US Middle East policy from a progressive Jewish perspective. Philip Weiss is also a fellow at the Nation Institute. Good to have you with us on the show, sir. And I just want to ask you to explain, first of all, I know you consider yourself an anti-Zionist as opposed to post-Zionist, a phrase that's popular with some. Explain to me how they differ.
You know, I'm not, I've sort of waffled on that one. I've called myself an anti-Zionist. I've also called myself a post-Zionist. I think those are more traditional definitions. My general feeling is that Zionism is a cul-de-sac for Jewish people, for the Middle East. It's a nationalist ideology that was appropriate to a time when anti-Semitism made the West very inhospitable to Jewish life. But now it's what Zionism has become is a militaristic nationalist ideology that is creating just enormous problems for Israel, for the Palestinians, and for the United States. So I sort of waffle on, my wife tells me not to use the word anti-Zionist because it sounds too negative, and it does fall into a sort of a traditional category. But I'm not wild about Zionism.
Let me ask you then. Right. Let me ask you then how you regard this view, perhaps, that the current trend in America now is a shift away from that traditional view of support for Israel, at least some questioning of what's going on, especially among young Americans, including young American Jews, that you know, the Palestinian rights really have to be a little more considered, and that there is a shift in how America might view its policy towards Israel.
You know, I'm a glass half full person, and therefore I completely agree with you. There's a lot that's unsettling on the horizon, but this is true. The things that Ed Koch sort of overlooked, the most crucial fact, I think, is that 53%, more than half of American Democrats now regard Israel negatively. Now, most Republicans overwhelmingly have a favorable view of Israel, but among Democrats, Barack Obama's base, they have a negative view of Israel. This is the result of Gaza. This is the result of Jim Crow segregation conditions in the West Bank, of second-class status for Palestinians. That awareness is beginning finally to grow in American liberal life, and that represents a huge shift. And within Jewish life, young Jews are beginning to stop drinking the Kool-Aid on this one and question whether they need a Jewish state, whether their own minority status in the United States is, we as a minority in the United States have the greatest freedom in the world. Why can't we extend our knowledge of how a society should work, why can't we tell the Israelis how to treat a minority? That is the critical question. And that's a cognitive dissonance.
Let's get in the question. I was going to get in a quick question because a viewer is on the line from Saudi Arabia with us. Nasser, what would you like to ask?
I have a very simple question. Riz, can you please tell me, in relation to the establishment of relation between Israel and U.S., who is master? Is it U.S. is master or is Israel is master? Yeah.
I'm not hearing that clearly. Oh, who's the master? Sorry, okay, now I understand. Sorry, the line was a little crackly on my end. So Philip, the question is really, who is the master in this relationship between Israel and America? I think that's something you were referring to there in your answer.
I can't speak about the European situation. I can say in the United States that the Israel lobby, which has been a very powerful force in American Jewish life, has played, I think, the largest role in forming policy in the Middle East. And so when even the decision to recognize Israel in May 1948 was pushed by a Zionist community in the United States and pushed successfully. And when Ed Koch brags about the ways that Barack Obama has stepped down on his sort of opposition to Israeli settlement building, that's a reflection of Israel lobby political pressure in the United States. Now, I think that lobby is beginning to encounter real opposition, but it has been, if not the master, it has been the largest force in creating that policy, and creating a bad policy, let me emphasize.
Now, of course, there's been a move, a more vocal move among American Jews to try to present something different, J Street being an example, and Mondoweiss. Give me some background on how you came about to set up Mondoweiss.
Personally, the reason that I got engaged in these issues is that when the Iraq War started, which I demonstrated against in the streets, my own relative said to me, I demonstrated against the Vietnam War, but my Jewish newspaper says that this war could be good for Israel. And I was shocked by that statement. And my relative's statement actually was accurate because Jewish newspapers were saying that, and Jews had opposed the Vietnam War. And so what you saw is that this is Israel's policy of militarism with respect to its neighbors, unending security needs. I felt that false understanding of how to deal with neighbors had been communicated to the United States, and we had accepted this ideology of permanent war with the Arab world, and that Zionists in the United States had played a very important role in communicating that ideology. So that's how I became involved as a Jew who was very concerned about the Jewish tradition of anti-war tradition and a Jewish universalist tradition of respect for neighbors, respect for other people, respect for the stranger in the land, respect for Arabs, respect for Palestinians.
Philip, I'd like to get your perspective on a view that many bring up, and especially those in the pro-Israel lobby, that with America's backing, Israel feels strong and feels confident enough to make peace. But if America slips away from supporting Israel, that Israel will take a much harder line and actually probably claw for more concessions against the Palestinians, and it would be a little harder to make peace in the long run. What's your view?
You know, the situation is so dysfunctional. It's sort of like saying, your 17-year-old son just shot up a liquor store. If we discipline him for shooting up the liquor store, then he might go ballistic and go shoot up the convenience store. Israel is out of control with the strong backing of the United States. Israel committed massacres in Gaza a year ago and has escaped any accountability for those actions. Israel is colonizing the West Bank, has done that with strong American control. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a spoiled relationship. It's an indulged relationship. That has to end. So I find that a kind of ridiculous argument.
What do you think it will take to change the current situation? What will it take for voices like yours and those who believe in a new direction to actually be heard strongly enough so America does create a visible change in its policy, and then a president like Barack Obama would not be forced to back down on what might have been a more positive direction for all?
Well, I'm a glass half full person, and there are very important changes that are taking place. You know, one, we elected a president named Barack Hussein Obama, who obviously is concerned with minority rights. And if you're concerned about minority rights, then you can't look at a situation in which the Palestinians have been promised a state for 60 years and the world has not delivered, and where these people have no self-determination and very few rights under occupation. You can't look at that and say, well, that's a good liberal policy for the United States. So that kind of sort of fundamental American recognition post-Iraq, in which we helped to destroy an Arab society, that is crucial. And within Jewish life, you see young Jews for whom anti-Semitism is not the dominant factor shaping their worldview. For Ed Koch, who's so concerned with Israel's security, he grew up with anti-Semitism. He thinks the world hates us. You know, young Jews are some of the most empowered people in the world, and the world doesn't hate us. And that shift in consciousness is going to allow younger Jews to break up the lobby by saying, you know, we have power here, and we have to show greater respect for a minority in Israel and Palestine.
30 seconds, Philip, but just a quick thought. Is it going to take the young generation to shift away from that lobbying?
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, you know, we're looking at a very grim situation. This two states that Ed Koch talks about so happily, you know, it hasn't happened in 60 years, and I don't think it's going to happen in the next 10.
Right.
And so you have a people under occupation.
Well, Philip Weiss, I want to thank you so much for joining us and giving us your views too. Good luck with Mondo Weiss.
Thanks, Riz.
Remember, you can follow the topics we cover on Facebook, see what we're up to there. You can also post your questions and comments, as well as share thoughts with viewers around the world. On the next show, how is Saudi Arabia balancing tradition with progress? The largely secretive kingdom is being examined in a new 3D documentary that gives the outside world a look at what he has to offer and how the country might move forward. I'll speak with one of Saudi Arabia's most influential royals, Prince Turki bin Faisal Al Saud. Join us for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.